I have an informal answer and then I have a formal answer. I would say the informal answer is I've always wanted to be like a composer. I guess I say that with quotations because I wasn't really sure like what kind of composer. But when I was really, really young, I used to listen to like Pandora radio all the time. That was my introduction to like new age classical music. And I loved it, and I loved the idea of being a film composer. That was what I really wanted to do when I was, I mean, I think probably 9 and up was when I really started thinking in that kind of almost like pipe dream way. And then the formal answer would be I believe when I was around 18 and I decided that I wanted to like study it in school. That was the moment when I realized like yes, I want to do this for a career, and I will, pursue this as much as I can and see where it goes. And there were a lot of kind of realizations that came with that, and ways that that path has changed for me, because in the beginning I was definitely set on pursuing film, and now I would say I am more in the concert music space, and I really prefer being in the concert music and I guess performance space that are slightly outside of that
Sure.
realm. But yeah, I would say when I was 18 and I was really considering studying it in school is when I really decided.
What do you think caused that shift? Because I feel like we all kind of, as composers, have that entry point of where, oh, I want to be a film composer, I want to be a video game music composer, like, those those kinds of inspirations. And then I guess we kind of get into school and it's like that's when it changes. I mean, was that kind of the case for you, or did you have you had an experience composing for film?
Yeah. Yeah, I did compose for some student films and some films that were directed by the university. And I mean, I really enjoyed that process. I think it was more of the fact that a lot of my mentors that I really looked up to there were not as involved in film. And the career path of film itself, the older I got and the more involved in the academic space that I was in, that's when I kind of decided to sort of pivot to concert music. But it wasn't necessarily driven by just kind of the environment of the music, but I think also I loved writing longer concert pieces. And I was really interested, and I still am really interested in kind of this meditative compositional space. And I think that could lend well to film music in some regard. And then in other regards, I just feel like the two paths are pretty different. And pursuing the two paths they at least feel different to me as a career. It seems like the film track is really, really fast paced and really, really involved in, creating demo reels and everything.
Right.
And that kind of fast paced creativeness for me, it doesn't usually happen like that. And that's kind of when I was like, well, maybe I should just explore the concert music space.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I'd imagine that all of the different kinds of music that you do make, they are equally integral to your creative work, like kind of in a holistic way. But how do you find balance among them all? I mean, how do you decide what to prioritize and when to prioritize it?
Yeah, I feel like this is a part of almost like a wider conversation as well, because for the longest time, I viewed them as very separate. They were very separate things. And I was constantly trying to figure out like how to make them not separate, but I couldn't, at least when I was younger, I couldn't really figure out why I felt they were so separate. Because now I feel like they're just, like you said, they're an integral, just part of the whole. They're part of who I am. And both of those spaces, or however many spaces, I guess we could say, they all just feel kind of like the same experience to me. But when I was in school, it felt very different. And I felt like the concert music that I was writing, that experience felt extremely different from the, you know, music that I was creating with my band. And I haven't really mentioned this, but my fiance and I are in a band together, and we started that band also when I went to college. So during that time, we were writing all of the music together in this collaborative space. And then I was also writing my own solo concert works, and it just felt like a very different kind of isolating experience for me. And so I knew I loved both spaces. Like I knew I really loved being a concert composer, and I also loved, writing in bands and the collaborative efforts. And so I really spent most of my time in undergrad and even my master's, like trying to figure out like, why do I feel like these things are so separate, you know? And I feel like I have an answer to that, but now I feel like it's just been a lot of time and healing and and taking time for myself to kind of define like what those spaces kind of mean for me. But now like balancing them, it feels a lot easier because I think I view it more as phases of life.
Yeah.
Like I view the spaces as, in this phase of life right now, for example, I'm really interested in growing as a bassist. I'm interested in growing as a performer and playing and touring as much as I can. The feeling of being on stage for me as a bassist is one of the most fulfilling and exciting things for me. And I've realized like it doesn't matter if I'm playing a cover gig, it doesn't matter if I'm playing a wedding gig, it doesn't matter if I'm playing someone else's music, it doesn't matter if I'm playing my own music, although that's probably my favorite is to play my own music. None of those things matter to me. What really feels the most me as a performer is just being on the stage and sharing like a musical space with other people. And I think once I realized that, which was definitely during the pandemic when I wasn't able to be doing that, I studied I studied my master's at University of Michigan during the pandemic. And so I was still able to compose as much as possible. And I had all the time, like endless time, because we weren't able to go outside or see our people. And I had all of this time to compose and I couldn't write anything because I just really was thinking about, wow, I really miss being on stage. I
Yeah.
miss this part of me that I can't believe I, was kind of pushing aside all this time. Because I would say that when I was in college, my phase of life then was definitely prioritizing concert music and prioritizing that kind of creation and collaboration in whatever way, which I love and I still to this day love. But I realized during the pandemic that I really also love being a performer, and I didn't feel like I could identify as both things at the time. And now I'm just doing as much as I can with as much with as much time as I have. But I would say currently in this phase of life, I'm definitely prioritizing, being a performer and collaborating with others. Songwriting is a huge part of what I'm really interested in right now. And I just finished up a consortium for solo trumpet, which has been so much fun to like be a part of. And that's the most recent concert music work I've had in a long time. And I almost was expecting that process to feel like a little foreign because it's been a little bit since I've actually written a concert piece. It's been probably around a year or so since I've had like a last commission. So I was not entirely sure how the process would feel for me, but it felt the same, which was really, really
Yeah.
great. I was so glad. But yeah, I would say phases of life for me, for sure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.